talking to us about business formation. Welcome, Sunita.
Thank you so much, Angie, for having me. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening. Where I'm at is the evening time. I know some people are in different time zones. I hope everyone's doing well today and was relaxed from their long holiday weekend. So, as Angie stated, I'll be talking about business formation today. So, I'm going to try to get through as much as I can. And if anyone has any questions, we can answer them at the end. So my session is business formation. So how many options? How do I choose? A little bit about me. I am an attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. I practice sports, entertainment, and business law. And my LinkedIn is in the chat. It's also on the slide. My website is creativeesquire.com. And that is my email and my business phone, and I'll give a little bit more information about how to reach me at the end of the presentation as well. So the importance of business formation. I often give talks about business formation and what entrepreneurs need to be legally protected. And although everyone has a great idea, everyone has immense talent, I'm always trying to tell my clients and others I speak with that, the number one thing you want to make sure that is you have everything together on the back end. So your foundational assets need to be protected. So your IP, your business name, your assets, your essentially everything that is important to you. Because if you don't have the right business structure, things can come back to haunt you, whether it was a contract you signed, whether it was a person you went in business with, as in your partner. I have a lot of clients who have come to me and had issues with partners because they were friends beforehand and they entered into a business deal without a contract or without any type of paperwork. And of course, as things happen, it went left. And so they ended up now having to come to me because the person is either trying to sue them or they're trying to say that they own majority of the business, or they want an extreme amount of money from the person's business. And sometimes the person that is suing them didn't even obviously put anything into the business, which again is when I go back to having the proper agreements and the proper formation at hand. So, like I just said, legal structure and liability, choosing the right business format for you and your business or your brand, because I also handle people who have brands as well, who are creatives, influencers, and things like that. So there are 5 types: sole proprietorship, general partnership, limited liability partnership, corporation, and limited liability corporations. As stated at the beginning, my business is Creative Esquire LLC, so I have a limited liability corporation. So each type of structure comes with different tax implications. So this is one of the reasons why people take time and try and figure out which formation is kind of fits what they need, depending on how you feel like you want to be taxed, depending on how much money you think you're going to bring in and things like that. I'm not a tax lawyer, but I do, delve a little bit into the different tax implications, but I don't go too deep because again, I'm not a tax lawyer or an accountant or a CPA or any type of person that deals with taxes. I strictly deal with the paperwork and making sure that you're registered properly or you have the right documents in place. Other things, fundraising and ownership can differ too, depending on the type of company you form. Tech companies often need investments to scale their business. And compliance and regulation. Certain business formations require ongoing compliance, and some of them have to have certain permits, licenses, and things like that. At the end, I'll talk a little bit about what we need in Georgia. Obviously, I know everyone in here is not situated in Georgia, but since that's where I'm at, I'll give a little bit about things that you need in order to make sure you're compliant in the state of Georgia. Again, we've already discussed the 5 types of business formations: sole proprietorship, general partnership, limited liability partnership, corporations, and limited liability corporations. The first one we're going to talk about is sole proprietorship. This is the easiest one to form because all you need is yourself. So it's easy to set up. So most people are just like, okay, I'm Sunita Blunt. I want to start a cake baking business. So there you have it, Sunita Blunt's Cakes. And I'm going to start selling them out my house because that's why I've been making cakes all these years and everyone enjoys my cakes. I don't need any paperwork. But I probably need permits and licenses, especially if I'm making food. So that's a separate industry where they have their own regulations. And obviously when you're using your home as a shop. You need permits for that too. However, the taxes that you have to report are individual. So you have to use that on your personal tax return. And this type of company has the most liability because being that you did not form anything to protect yourself, you, the individual, are responsible for anything that happens. So whether someone gets sick from your cakes, whether someone says you didn't bake the type of cake they wanted, whether you turned down someone's business for whatever reason that you wanted to turn down the business, it then all comes back to you because you formed a sole proprietorship. And obviously, self-employment, taxes, you're responsible for those as well when you have a sole proprietorship. And other things like Medicare and Social Security, again, that's above my pay grade, but those are the things that come with having a sole proprietorship. The next one is a general partnership. Again, this is also simple. So this goes back to when I was saying how I have clients who come to me and have formed businesses with a friend or a family member or a longtime business colleague. And that's great. That's fine. You guys had an idea and you decided to partner with each other in order to bring the idea to life. However, although it has minimal paperwork and the business may not pay taxes, each person is responsible for the other's actions. So that goes back to when I stated that I have clients who have come to me now who are now in contracts they didn't want to be in. So now they owe vendors or they owe contractors or they owe clients or consumers certain things that they did not want to agree to, but because they formed this general partnership, the other partner has entered into this deal and now made them liable for their actions. You're also liable for as I stated, the liabilities of the business. So now, okay, you might be getting in a lot of money. Say the business is profitable and you guys are making money and it's going great. However, someone comes to you and says, well, my daughter got sick from one of your cakes. So now it still goes back to you because you formed a partnership. So now you're still liable because you still don't have the best protection you can to protect your assets. So when I say to protect your assets, I mean that when a person then has an issue against you, they can sue you personally. So your home, your bank accounts, the property you own, things like that. So this is a good partnership to have, but I always advise people to get something in writing. Even in the state of Georgia, you do not have to have a written document to form a partnership. It is always best to have everything in writing, especially when you're going into something like this, because you want to make sure that you're not putting all of your blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then your partner is doing minimal work, but then they're also getting to reap the benefits, which is the profits. So it's best to have a structured agreement that says, look, this is what I'm going to put into the partnership. This is what you're going to put into the partnership. This is what we're bringing to the business. This is how we're going to split the profits. This is how we're going to split the expenses. This is how we're going to split the work, etc. So it's always best to have that in writing so that you don't have issues, because I've had clients who have orally gotten themselves into partnerships and did not know it. And they were like, well, I didn't have a contract and we never signed anything. Yeah, but to the public, you named this person as a partner in your business. So that's enough proof for them legally to say, hey, you said I was a partner. Although my client thought the person was just a contractor for them and doing work for them because they were friends. No, you called them your partner through text, you called them your partner through video and things like that. So I always use that example when I talk about partnerships because it took me a while to get my client out of that. We ended up settling, but it was a very good learning lesson for him as an entrepreneur and for me as an attorney, and for me to then talk about when I give these types of speeches and workshops, because that it was such a horrible experience because it was a business that he had started on his own and he thought his friend was assisting him, when in all actuality, the friend thought he was a partner and would be getting the profits from the business. So we'll move on to the next one, which is a limited liability partnership or a limited partnership. So liability is limited to the amount the partner puts into the business. So these types of partnerships are generally for more professional based companies. So that's why I don't really dwell on too much. But basically the partners manage the company and the limited partners invest in the company, but they don't really have any say in the day-to-day operations for a limited partnership. And then for an LLP, which is a limited liability limited partnership, that's something that's kind of relatively new. So it's similar to an LP, except the general partners have some liability protection. So we're still in the category of partnerships where you had, so we're now giving you some protection, but you still have some benefits and some protection split amongst a group of people. Next is a corporation, which most of us are familiar with. This has the most advantages because it acts as a separate entity from the individuals. So they have a board of directors that run the corporation. However, when taxation comes, corporations are subject to double taxation. The corporation pays taxes on its incomes at the corporate tax rate, and the shareholders have to pay taxes as well on the dividends. The shareholders obviously elect the board of directors, and the board of directors run the day-to-day operations. You do not have to have paperwork with the state. I'm sorry, you do. Excuse me, you do have to have paperwork. These are called the articles of incorporation. And these basically outline how your corporation is set up. You have to have certain things now, like your board of directors, how you'll be splitting up your shares and things like that. When it comes to your annual profits, your annual meetings, you have to have all of those things. So this is where we get into actually having to have that paperwork in order and registering with the state. The shareholders do not incur liabilities from lawsuits or debts of the corporation. The benefits are, favorable for larger businesses or those planning to reinvest back into the company. And they normally do this because they can do this at a lower tax rate on their retained earnings. The next is a limited liability corporation, which is probably the one that you see for most startup businesses. And that's because you can have a single member LLC like I have for my business, and you can have a multi-member LLC. So this is a hybrid of a partnership and a sole proprietorship. And the reason why it's a hybrid is because, like I said, it can be single or you can have multi-members, which will then bring you into having a partner. But that again, you still need to have the proper agreement in place. Even though this is an LLC, you still want to ensure that everyone in the LLC who are members knows what their job duties are, knows how the profits are going to be split and everything else. Because again, you still do not want an issue to come up where someone is a member of the LLC and they don't know their particular role, or they don't know how profits are being split or how expenses or anything like that are being split. So this is a great benefit to startup companies because you're not personally liable for the debts or liabilities of the company. You can lose money in the company, but your personal assets are protected. So when you're forming your company, you always want to ensure that you're protected. So any agreements you go into, you want to make sure it's under the company name. Anytime you're putting yourself out there as a business, you want to ensure that you're putting yourself out there as that particular business. So instead of saying Sneeda Blunt Cakes, my cake company could be Blunt's Cakes Are the Best. At least Blunt's Cakes Are the Best LLC has now been formed with the state of Georgia. I have the correct paperwork in progress, especially if I have another member or a partner that is doing the cake business with me. I have all of that lined out. Those documents don't have to be filed with the state. Your organization documents does, but not the actual, agreement between you and the other members of the LLC. But the LLC documents are formed. And so now when someone has an issue with your business, they go right to the state and they have to then go through the proper channels in order to bring any type of, suit against you, whether it's for like I said, them not liking your cakes or you not doing something when it comes to baking their cakes. It depends. But at least your assets are protected because no one wants to lose their home, their house, or anything else they work hard for because they have a business that also they've worked hard for, but now they have other, when you have people that you are now customer facing or business facing, now you have more of a liability because anybody can sue you for anything, whether they, like I said, just because they didn't like the cake that you baked. So the other variables when it comes to actually choosing an LLC or a C corp or a partnership are taxation, which I talked about at the beginning, and I said that I'm not a tax expert, but I'll give you a general overview. C corps, like I said, face double taxation because both the partner corporate profits and shareholder dividends are taxed. S corps and LLCs avoid this because they have something we call pass-through profits, which are passed through the owner's personal tax returns. Self-employment taxes, as I stated before, are for sole proprietors, partners, and LLC members. They typically pay self-employment taxes. LLCs offer more flexibility when it comes to tax treatment, as I stated before. Other things to consider is fundraising equity versus debt. The choice between raising funds through equity or debt often depends on the business structure again. So equity financing is generally more accessible for corporations, especially C corps, while sole proprietorships and partnerships may rely more on debt financing. Again, that's a little bit above my pay grade, but I do like to touch on that a little bit because some people, may be like, well, I want to try to get investors or things like that. And forming the right type of business will let you know what type of investing or what type of funding and money you can get for your particular business. As I touched on investor expectations, different investors have different expectations. Venture capitalists typically seek high growth opportunities and prefer C corps. Angel investors might be open to LLCs or S corps, but will want equity in exchange. So I often talk about that too with my clients as far as like offering some type of equity or even if they're entering a contract to try to see if they can get equity in something. If the person can't offer them something financially feasible like money in return or a high return on their profit. So again, Georgia regulations, I'm going to touch on a little bit. So sole proprietorships, as I stated before, do not need to register their business, but again, they may need certain business licenses to operate out of. You're still required to register your business name, especially if you have a DBA in Georgia. You will need a registered agent for your LLC. This is the person who receives correspondence about your business. So again, if someone is trying to sue you or you have any updates from the state, that will be your registered agent. Georgia does require annual registration of your business if it's a corporation, an LP, or LLC, and you must have annual meetings. And lastly, the sole proprietorship will file with the clerk of the Superior Court, and the LLC, LP, and Corp would file their initial paperwork with the Secretary of State. Also, you should definitely secure a state tax ID and a federal EIN so that, again, for tax purposes and for liability purposes, you now have something that your business can call its own as far as its own business ID that's separate from your social security number. Okay, so any questions?
I think we're perfectly at time. Are there any questions? What are some mandatory regulatory and compliance related documents one should maintain?
So so that would also depend on your state. But in general, you should always have your tax documents, which have your, again, like I said, your federal EIN. Those should always be accessible, your state ID, your articles of incorporation or your organization articles, depending on if you have a LLC or a corporation. You should always have any type of contract that you formed if you have partners or investors or shareholders. Those are things that you should always have. And you should always go and check with your particular state to see if you need any permits, licenses, or anything to comply with those regulations because every state is different.
Thank you so much.